go wrong on live?
It's better to have technical difficulties than other difficulties.
Oh, yeah.
There's difficulty you want to have.
Is this a call-in show also?
I believe we already checked and the phone should be operating this time.
Uh-oh.
There we are.
I told you we're up.
10-4.
Okay. Go ahead, we're just taking 1 minute at the beginning.
Hold on. Don Chavez? Right?
Yep.
Dominique, Don, whatever you, what you prefer?
Dom, I make it easy.
Oh, okay, Dom.
It's always tough to pronounce. Dom Chavez.
Put a Z on there. He's
Yep.
not
Place
Chavez,
5.
it's
That's right, place 5.
Place 5.
That's this guy.
It's like the mafia.
And of course, we all know Laura Pressley.
That's this one. And you know Gavino over there.
Yes. And,
So, anyway, somebody has left us an Austin icon.
He was an Austin icon. He did a cable access TV show with the homeless for years. Good old Leslie Cochran. We'll miss you, Leslie.
Whether we like it or not.
He was a
I shouldn't
character,
say
an
that.
Austin icon, and if you ever talked with him, he was really intelligent.
Yeah,
He
we
had a lot of
did.
good stuff to say. He was
We've
very
spoken with him
politically
before.
active. He dressed a little funny, but he was our Leslie, and we're all going to miss him.
If
Bye, Leslie.
that's an Austin icon, what's the rest of the damn town like? Well, no, never mind. I forgot we're live, ain't we? Sorry about that.
well, I have a
Boston
nephew.
weird.
I have a nephew that's named Dominic. So for me, Dominic is very common. So that's why I say.
10-4.
Pretty name.
It is
It's a
a
very
pretty
pretty name. It is.
People always have a tough time spelling it. Is with a Q-U-E? Is it a C-K? So I just say, you know what, just call me
Just call me
Dom.
Dom.
Makes it easier.
10-4. Well, you know, we usually start out with tell us about your South bio or whatever that's called. Unless you want to throw in something real quick before we go off here.
No, we'll hear from them, see who they
Let's
are.
hear,
what
let's
they
hear
come
from
and
good, Dom. Tell us about
what they have
yourself.
to
All right,
offer.
I've been in Austin, Texas now for 10 years. This is where I moved as my first place to be as a working adult. I've lived here for, again, the past 10 years. I've enlisted in the United States Army Reserve, was proud to serve overseas at least once during that time frame.
Where'd you serve?
Baghdad, Iraq.
Wow.
Went to Iraq
Yeah.
for a year. I've worked in now state government for 5 years, worked in the private sector, and the reason I'm running is because, you know, I think I represent the typical family. We've experienced the typical challenges trying to afford to live in this community. I felt like the city council for many years now has not looked out for the typical family, and so I felt like, I'm running against a machine. I know how tough uphill climate's going to be, but I figured there's got to be someone who's willing to stand up and tell the truth, you know, point out the challenges we have in this community, but also talk about the things that the opportunities that we have. Yeah. If we would just focus on the right issues, focus on things like the focus of my campaign, which is about, you know, making Austin more affordable for the working families in this community, for the people who work in our hotels, who dig our holes, who help build this community so that they can live here as opposed to Kyle, Buda, Bastrop, et cetera. Right. Making this community safe. You know, people want investment in public safety. And then the most importantly, which is a passion for me, is making sure that there's economic opportunities for people in this community. That's why I've made workforce education a primary theme of my campaign that nobody on this council currently is talking about, but you have what like Mayor Castro is doing in San Antonio, which is making it the #1 community priority, education and workforce development. Because I think people want to know that not just are they going to be able to thrive in this community, but what's the community going to look like, you know, 10, 15, 20 years now for their children. So I'm hoping I bring a perspective. I live in far South Austin. We haven't had any representation in many years. We're the fastest growing part of this community by any measure that you look at. And again, the city council has neglected that part of the community. And so I hope I bring a different perspective and voice. And I'm going to run as hard as I can against the machine that exists. And we'll see how it turns out.
You were also involved with your neighborhood association, correct?
I was, that's right. I was vice president first, then president of my neighborhood association in far South Austin. So I know how hard it is to deal with the city. Again, it's great. They talk about how you can participate, how, we've got all these opportunities to come up to City Hall and participate in committees. But the neighborhood I lived in, it was mostly, you know, elderly, you know, retirees. We just now starting to get some new families in there. But we've lived so far south, you say, we'll come down to a planning commission meeting at 6 o'clock on a Thursday.
Can't even make it.
I mean, those folks don't go out after 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And so they can't participate. And
I'm kind of like one of those myself.
Yeah, it's just
get out very often anymore.
So you
We're
get
trying to get from South Austin to downtown by 6.
That's
You
right.
try to do that
Yeah,
with the
that's true.
traffic.
And so you understand why all of a sudden, why doesn't the city focus on those issues? Because it's hard for us to participate. But that's why I'm a strong proponent of going to this 10-1 single-member districts, so that those people in South Austin have somebody they can call.
Well, we'll get around to that part.
Okay, I won't get off message.
This was just a biography.
Yeah, well, it's just about so anyways, that's why I'm running, because I'm hoping to bring some representation, and I'm looking forward to this race and weighing in on the debate.
10-4. I will say that I did only tried once to get your opponents, including Bill Spillman, to see if they want to come on, and I just don't have time to wait around too long. You responded, they didn't. Maybe later, because the city race is coming up. What, March?
May the 12th.
May the 12th. So it's
The early vote begins April the 30th.
so we're already well on the way. Okay, Laura, we all know you pretty much, and I won't call you the fluoride queen or anything like that.
Oh,
but
no,
I
don't do
understand that's a
that.
major
Don't do
issue.
that. I'm the anti-fluoride queen.
Hell, I
Get it
see.
straight. If you're going to marginalize us, we say do it right.
Okay.
So I'm Laura Pressley, and I've lived in Austin 23 years. I spent 17 years in the semiconductor industry here in town as an engineer and as a business manager, and I've managed teams in Austin, Malaysia, and I live in Allendale, which is a little bit northwest Austin. And I've been testifying to the city council for about 2 years now, and just really frustrated. I was brought in as a technical expert on some water safety and some radiation safety issues with workers, and I present the data, technical data, to the council, and I think, couple weeks, couple times showing them the data, they're going to make the right decision. 2 years later, they're still not making the right decision, and it's very frustrating. So as I was testifying to the council, like you, Dominic, I would see people come up, present information, different groups, different neighborhood groups, different citizens groups, and they just don't pay attention, and they don't do what is in the best interest of our citizens. And I got really frustrated with it, so I decided to run for city council. My big issue is also affordability. There's a lot of money that we're wasting. There's nobody on that council that has a business background or a technology, computer, semiconductor, networking background to ask those hard technical questions and ask the hard business questions. I'm going to give you an example. Austin Energy is a $1 billion business group, okay, for the city, and they are a for-profit entity, and those profits go to fund all the social programs that we have for the city. And some of those, we could talk about the benefits of all of those programs, but the bottom line is Austin Energy, there's no expectation for them to cut their expenses year on year, just like all the other billion-dollar businesses around Austin. We're a big city. There's a lot of businesses here, and people with a business background understand cutting costs and becoming more efficient year on year. And there's nobody on that council setting that expectation and asking those hard questions. And if you can do that, you've cut the expenses and you don't grow the government. And that's a big issue.
That's one of the things we're going to talk about.
Okay.
We'll be.
Alrighty. So I'm glad to be running against Mike Martinez, and
He was invited several times.
who was invited many times by multiple people, and he's not shown up. And I think, we're here to answer questions and talk about what we stand for.
Yeah, I believe we got the telephone up to tonight too, if you really want to
Maybe
call
if,
in.
Laura can speak about a most recent experience that happened this weekend that's very rare, coming from the
Yes.
Central Laborers Council Union, and
AFL,
you want to share that with
Yes.
CIO.
Yes, the Texas AFL.
Can we do that, Ma? Oh, okay.
Is she going to pull it up?
Hello? Oh, telephone. Oh, hello, go ahead, caller.
Hello.
It takes a little while to figure out what's going on sometimes. He'll call me slow pokey for nothing. Go ahead, caller. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Pokey.
Yes, sir.
All right. Hey, I got a question for the two council. Actually, not a question. Just a favor. If you guys are elected, one thing I would love for you guys to look into is the sex offender laws. I know a lot of it is done by state, but there are some cities that have passed some ordinances that won't allow sex offenders near schools. Texas does not have that law right now. If you are not on probation or parole, you can live anywhere you would like. There is a sex offender that lives right across the street from my child's school. Every day at 2:45, comes out and watches the kids. 3 o'clock, he goes back in. I have called every council member. I've called everybody I can think of. I've talked to the police chief. I've talked to everybody. Nothing can be done until this guy harms another child. So I would like, if you guys are elected, to look into it, and if you could help in any way.
So you'd like to know what they can do as city councilmen to help out with this kind of problem.
Yeah, and everybody, I talked to a couple of council members, and they said that this guy has rights, but he's molested an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and this is right across the street from an elementary school.
Convicted?
Convicted, yep. He spent 10 years in the prison.
Well, I really don't want to, that's a good question we'll ask, but when somebody tells me sex offender, all you got to do is get a few beers and go take a leak somewhere, and you got a sex offender crime on you.
Yeah, but you
can actually get one for anything.
Talk to the guy, you get arrested for harassment or stalking. They charge you more than they would charge this guy for.
Yeah,
looking.
That's true. Yeah, and I think actually the one I'm thinking about is an exposure case or something, but that becomes.
Yeah.
But if he's actually been convicted, then he shouldn't be around. You got to. So what do y'all say? We'll start with Lori.
Well,
thank you, sir.
Thanks for the question. This is something I've not looked into, so I'm not sure how to answer the question, to be honest with you. You do have to be careful with people's rights, and I think, so I need to look more into it. I'm not sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
I'm not sure.
Well, I will tell you, as a father of a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, this is something that it's real personal for me, and so I think, and again, I don't know all the particulars. I guess I was under the impression that state law did provide some protection and prohibition, but if that's not the case, we certainly ought to look at it. I'm also want to be cautious because I know there's our sex offender laws. There's also a concern about, well, you have a situation where perhaps a 17-year-old, two 17-year-olds had sex, and so one gets charged with sexual, as a sexual predator. We need to be careful about how we treat those issues. But if this guy was truly one of those that was,
hold on, I can't stop laughing to us because I swear I didn't know that girl was 15.
Yeah, that's right.
Her daddy had a shotgun. It's been 36 years now, and she ain't shut up one time.
So go ahead. No, and so
that's the kind of case you're talking about.
We need to be careful about that. But if this is clearly a situation where you have a child predator who's convicted of being a child predator, and they're living next to a school, I have some real concerns about that. Some of that is probably controlled by state law. But if I were a city council member and I know that sort of stuff is happening, I'll be the first one to go up to the state capitol and say we need to fix this because there's a problem.
All right. Any other callers, or can we go to AFL-CIO? Can you pull it up? Because we need to hurry a little bit. On Saturday, I guess that's March 11th, huh? Oh, there it is. See anything you want to say about this, Laura? I'm not really familiar with it. Maybe Gavino knows more about it. Is this really that unusual, or?
Yes.
Is this a big thing?
Often, Central Labor's Council Unit is a very large organization composed of different unions.
Yes, sir.
And they're very important in the endorsement process, mainly because they make contributions to the candidates that they endorse, and they have mail-outs, and they have
volunteers,
they provide to home banking. So once one of those organizations endorses you, well, those are some of the benefits that a candidate receives. But you had a good experience this Saturday.
Yeah, so Saturday, and Dominique, you were there also. They the Texas AFL-CIO Central Labor Council met, and all the candidates presented, I think, 15 minutes, and we went first, and then Mike Martinez presented, and we heard that he made a comment about our candidacy that I was anti-woman. All right, and one of the women responded in the audience, it's on one of the members, and said, well, how can she be anti-woman when she's a woman?
Did he elaborate on this?
I guess not. So anyway, that was just, so there's some mudslinging going on, but bottom line is that the Central Labor Council did not endorse Mike Martinez. The main reason was the Amalgamated Transit Union and Mike Martinez have been at odds with regard to the leadership of the Capital Metro Board, where Martinez is head of the board of the directors. And a lot of issues going on there with routes not being optimized, and him not supporting their workforce, and not supporting workforce in Austin in general. And so it wasn't just the transit union, but it was also, I think, We heard that the teachers union was not happy, and some of the city employees were not happy, so he did not get the 2/3 vote for that endorsement, and he's gotten it historically. So this is a big deal. This is a big deal. And we did not get it. You know, we're not members of the union, so I didn't expect that we would get it. But the bigger news is, and the message is, he didn't get it.
You got a Ron Paul sticker, they're not going to give it to you.
I got a Ron Paul sticker. And
I know the AFL-CIO is big time in the Democrat Party in this county, so.
They are. And, you know, and I got some questions about the Ron Paul sticker, and I said, basically, you know, Ron Paul is the only candidate that's the anti-war candidate right now. I'm sick of the wars. I'm sick of these unconstitutional wars. And from a moral standpoint, you know, it affects our country's standing. It affects our economy. It affects our debt. It affects our environment. I can't think of any one thing that is more detrimental to our environment. After all the work we do to protect it, and you have a war and you've got depleted uranium, all these things destroys it. Also, Ron Paul's the only anti-NDAA.
Well, yeah, this will be Ron Paul.
We can go down the
road if I wanted to.
Well, these elections are nonpartisan. City
supposed to be
council
nonpartisan.
are nonpartisan, and the Ron Pauls or the Rick Perrys or the
with AFL-CIO is very partisan, though.
Right.
They
are heavily Democrat, and I don't think they've ever had any Republican.
The county is pretty heavy Democrat.
Yeah, this is a Democrat county, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But let me, can I jump
Go ahead.
Because I made
You were there too.
Well, I was there too, and I made the same, I brought it up with them proactively. No one asked me this question, but they said, you know, because I know this is out there, and I said, look, people are going to make a deal about my voting record. Have I voted in Republican primaries? Sure I have. Have I voted in Democratic primaries? Sure I have.
Same thing.
I vote in a general election. I voted for Republicans and Democrats because I picked a candidate that I believe has the best ideas, that has the best vision, that has the best chance of making a difference in our community no matter what position they are. And I will tell you what, most people would call that being an independent. And this is a nonpartisan race. If you want to make a decision on partisanship, hey, I'm all for it. I respect your right. But I just told them, and I told them flat out, I need you to ask a question. For those of you who want to make a purely partisan decision, you need to ask yourself, is traffic better or worse in this community under my opponent's tenure? Is this community more or less affordable under my opponent's tenure? Is East Austin more or less gentrified under my opponent? I mean, you go down the list of issues. And if you can't answer those questions to your satisfaction, then open your mind, listen to what I have to say, listen what I fought against in this community, listen what I fought for in this community, and then make a decision. Because if you're going to make a purely partisan decision, then I'm telling you, we're not going to get very far in this community. And I think I'm finding, aside from some of these groups, as you were talking about earlier, Gavino, about they're the same people, I'm finding a lot of people from all parts of the spectrum coming to my campaign and saying, I like your ideas. Nobody's talking about this. Right. And keep running and fight hard. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, I've been involved in as a young kid in many city elections. And one of them that stands out very distinct to me is when Will Wynn ran for office. You know, as all the, I don't know if you remember when all the candidates would get down together at the Municipal Auditorium or the Coliseum to receive the votes. And when Will Wynn won, and they announced his results at the county, at the center, it's only him and two other people that were there. You know, so Will Wynn wasn't part of this Democratic club kind of candidacy.
Travis County
so it's so unpredictable. You know, the Austin voter's so unpredictable. So if Will Wynn can win, and he wasn't aligned with any of the unions or Democratic clubs or anything like that, you know, it's possible for any candidate citizen. And I think that, you know, at the bottom of the line, you know, as a resident, as a citizen, to me it doesn't matter whether it's a Republican or Democrat, as long as my parks, my libraries, and my city services are adequate and
affordability. That's one of my favorites.
I mean, that's right. Whoever can deliver that. Bill White voted split ticket, and he ran for governor. You know, so it's not.
We have a lot of those. My wife is like that. I'm afraid I'm pretty much hardcore. And we argue that, but you're right, and that is good to. They all make good points. You should vote for who you think is the best. And I'm really surprised you said that in front of AFL-CIO.
I said it right because here's what my campaign is, and I've told people this, every group I've met with, every individual. You are going to know where my 2 feet are planted on any issue. I'm not going to BS you. Can we say that on access?
Yeah.
You just did. You just did.
No 7-second delay here.
No,
I'm not going to BS you. I'm going to tell the truth. People want elected
Yes,
leaders
that's
to
right.
tell them where they stand. Whereas my opponent continues to make, he wants to play both sides of issues. I'm going to tell you right where I stand. If you don't like where I'm going to stand, then vote me out in 3 years, and I'm happy to take my walking papers.
10-4.
But I'm going to be straight up with people, and that's why I told them in front of the AFC, and they were all kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy
saying the
brought this
truth.
up.
He's saying the
Because
truth.
I said, why should I BS you?
Yeah.
They're used to people kissing up to them to
Yeah.
get their endorsement. That
You were part of a lawsuit on the homestead tax.
was.
Could you talk a little bit about that and educate our voters on how you may have saved us more money?
Well, I thought we had, but we keep finding that they're finding ways to get around it. But basically, you talk about a kind of a bipartisan, nonpartisan effort. It was myself, Mike Levy, and everyone knows Mike Levy, and Alfred Stanley, who is an unabashed, liberal Democrat. We sued the city of Austin because the city of Austin was basically giving away tax exemptions for homeowners that were designated historic. And they were doing it, if you were deemed historic, you automatically got a tax exemption, even though state law required that you have to demonstrate financial need. So that like literally, I cannot afford to make these improvements, or I cannot afford to maintain my house unless I get some relief.
part of gentrification.
Part of that,
They would say,
that's right. And so you had homes that were literally valued at $1 million, $2 million, getting basically not paying city property taxes, school property taxes, ACC property taxes, at a time we're telling teachers, sorry, we've got to let you go. So we sued the city and said, there is no review process. This is basically, it was basically tantamount to giving away goodies to friends in West Austin that supported. Meanwhile, I've got people in my neighborhood who are on fixed incomes. That burden's being passed on to them. So we sued the city and said, look, we're not against historic zoning. We're not against historic homes. But at least you ought to be able to prove to the city, I need this money.
Yeah.
I need this tax exemption, instead of just giving it to them. We sued, they settled and said we're going to do a better job. I'm not convinced they're going far enough. I think they find ways to get around that. There was a case that just came up in front of the council for a $2 million home to give them a tax exemption.
Right.
Meanwhile, you've got historic homes in East Austin. I mean, they're not up on the docket to get tax exemptions. And so
and they need it because they need the money to try and maintain it.
They actually do require it. And there's a lot of historic properties in East Austin are being ignored.
Doesn't
Well,
Lord's
okay.
opponent have a nice house going up? And,
Oh, yeah. Almost
Anyway.
$2 million home going
$2
up,
million
2 lots
home,
on
right
East
smack
Austin.
in
We
the
have
middle.
yard signs around his house, or in his neighbors.
I didn't mean to cut you out
So
there.
sorry
Gary.
about
I
that.
was just
No,
trying to
Sorry,
think-
sorry.
no, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, isn't that in one of those neighborhoods that are lower income neighborhoods?
Yeah, on
Yeah.
11th Street.
And he's
yeah.
building up this real nice place.
Yeah, the neighbors weren't even aware that that was his house. So until we were block walking and got signatures on our ballot for a ballot petition, told
Well,
them
we
whose
need-
house it's going to be, and they were not happy.
Well, that's good. We need people like that in city council, no doubt.
That's right.
You went out the door and they forget all about it.
That's right. Well,
You get elected, you won't be going out the door.
That's right. That's right.
Affordability stuff, yeah, I was going to talk about rate increase, 6th Street, it's South by Southwest. Some of my musician friends say that it's just not user-friendly because of the way the cops are so heavy-handed. And I know recently, like we talked before the show, there's been this shooting incident and no bail. I don't know could y'all do anything about that in city council?
Oh, I think so.
If it didn't
I
go
think-
your way or not, or?
Well, I think the bottom line with that is there needs to be a preservation of life expectation. The police, I
This
think
sounds like a lawyer's term, preservation of life expectation.
we talked about it yesterday. So I think that the police force is by and large really good, and they do the right thing. You may have a couple police officers, or peace officers, what I'd like to call them, that may need more training, and I think that's really the bottom line. When escalation occurs, when there's an interaction with an individual and the police officer, and instead of de-escalate the situation, I think there needs to be more training to take the de-escalation instead of continue
Yes,
it to
ma'am.
go up and up, and then have somebody shot and killed. or tasered lethally.
Even the civilians, we're trained to de-escalate and to conceal handguns.
Exactly. I mean, in negotiations, you're taught to de-escalate situations and try to keep everybody calm so you can stay rational. I think what happened with this this young man, Byron Carter, is that the community doesn't exactly know what happened. We don't have the information. We don't have the data. We don't, I have a physics background, and I'd like to understand where the people were standing, where he was sitting, how he got shot in the back of the head and then the shoulder, the stomach, and the leg. I'd like to understand that, but the community's not being given that information.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
You have to do that to calm everybody
As
down.
city council, could you pressure them
We could do that. We could. There are no council members coming out and saying, we want transparency, we want to know exactly what happened, this is what happened, and by the way, we want a preservation of life ordinance or resolution. That's what the city council can do, and say, we need more training, and we need the public to feel confident that their safety is real and that the police are on our side.
I take a little bit of different tact. I mean,
not to cut you out, but I would also think we also would know that the police are going to protect us from. They said that they were burglarizing cars or something, or
sure.
I don't know, but that's the point of hiring the cops, I thought, was to make sure we could go to 6th Street without getting hassled or ripped off.
Yes.
I take a little bit of tact, and one of my main themes of my campaign is that we need to make cost-effective investments in people, technology, but I also make a clear distinction that also the training, to make sure that we have the best trained police force in the state of Texas.
Well, we have the best paid, right?
Yeah, we got the best paid.
and we need to make sure that we are investing in the type of training. And as somebody who had to train U.S. soldiers, and I had to train young soldiers, 17, 18, 19 years old, to actually have to get past that point where they've got to point a weapon down range and point it at people. And it's not something you want to do. It's not something you like to do. It is very much against human nature.
That's why I was trying to give these cops at least some benefit of the doubt.
And I
know they don't just want to go out and shoot people.
Well, and I will tell you
too much paperwork.
The challenge is once a decision has been made, whether it's the United States military for a police officer, and I have many friends who've served in DPS and police departments, once that weapon is drawn, you have crossed a threshold that is very difficult to get back from.
Yeah.
You've crossed a threshold that there's not very many options you have once your weapon is drawn and you've made a decision that I may have to use this weapon. I understand the point.
So as city council member, you would.
I want to invest in the type of training, and I think the police department would support this, and the police union support this. I want to invest in the type of training that somewhat what you're talking about is trying to find every way not to get to that point where you have to draw your weapon.
Prevention.
Because once you pull that weapon, I don't want to be in a position as a city council member to say, okay, well now here's what you have to do once you pull that weapon.
Right.
I would rather focus our efforts on how do we get to some steps before you have to pull that weapon. Hopefully you never have to. But once you pull that, I'm not going to second guess an officer because it's very difficult. But I will say that we can do much more to prevent some of these issues. And in terms of the investigation, look, this is a very tough political issue. There's people who have very legitimate concerns about the use of police force, and we have to be cognizant of that because if there are segments of this community that have lost faith in our police department, that ought to raise concern for everybody.
As much as we're paying them, yeah.
It ought to raise concerns for everybody. So and I think the police officers and men and women that serve in uniform would say the same thing. They don't want to be in that position of losing the confidence. But we have to make sure we have a process when things like this happen, that there is due process for everyone involved. Not just the alleged perpetrator. We provide due process for alleged perpetrators of crime. We have to make sure that the officers are treated in a fair way. But we have to be transparent to the public.
And that's what's not happening.
It's not, and I think we have to be honest.
And that's where people start questioning and not trusting, and that
Sure.
makes it even worse. It's this negative feedback loop that you get into, where you didn't give us the information, so how can we trust what you're telling us now? That's what's broken.
And I think that's part of the thing is we also have to be to the point where we get closure on these.
So could any of this be related down to making 6th Street more user-friendly? We
tried to park downtown last night, didn't we?
Yeah, they had the whole parking lot closed off.
The main parking lot under the bridge where the art is.
If we're going to be the media capital of the world or whatever.
That is across from the police station. That is the main place where you park
Yeah, and on
South by
Southwest, and they
What
got
are they
that big
thinking?
parking lot closed, and
What are they thinking? You can
well, I've had
there's
people tell
revenue
me
there.
that 6th
Metro
Street,
Rail is what they're thinking.
Oh, is that the
they
Metro
told me
Rail?
that 6th Street just isn't really user-friendly for running a business or anything, because
can't park.
It could be, it can't park, you're gonna be harassed by the cops.
Well,
It was their
that's
big
right,
complaint.
that's right.
Let me tell you, it's not just 6th Street. I have a friend of mine who owns a skate shop. I want to say it's on Guadalupe and, gosh, it's just near UT. She has made complaints for a long time that it's all these special events where they close streets, and it really does affect
Their business.
their business.
Yes.
And it's one of those things. Look, we've got a lot of great events downtown. We certainly don't want to stop those things, but we also be cognizant that small businesses depend on foot traffic, and unfortunately, we live in an environment where they depend on car traffic as well. And those things keep getting squeezed more and more, and it makes it difficult to do business.
Well, I was just trying to think of some way we can enhance the economic opportunity on 6th Street to make Austin a more economically viable town, because if you increase economic activity for any sector of the city, we're all going to benefit.
Yeah.
And if we're going to be the live music capital, then I hate to have bar owners or operators or musicians telling me that it's really bad on 6th Street, because if you get too loud, they give you a ticket, or if you got, I mean, we don't want drunk drivers on the street, but I mean, they have so many police that they seem to be a little heavy-handed.
Well, remember the complaints about the noise ordinance. The reason the noise ordinance got made was because we made this big push to bring a lot of residents downtown. When those residents got downtown, they said, you know what, it's really loud down here. We got to stop. So it's a self-inflicted wound in some
And
extent.
some of the condominiums got waivers for insulation for sound. So, to cut the cost of the developers, they got waivers to not put up this insulation. So, hello, what do you expect?
Well,
You're
you
gonna
know,
have
it's
issues.
interesting. We had a sound ordinance, yet it wasn't it didn't apply to the city of Austin when when you talked about the Holly Power Plant. You know, we didn't have that same noise ordinance did not apply. We used to have noise levels at 110 decibels when all 4 units were running. And I know
Well, you got a lot of economic incentive down there.
Lord, too much. We as a neighborhood really don't have that big of an issue with growth, but I think that it has to be managed growth. It can happen. There are communities throughout the country where you have the $650,000 home and the $90,000 home, but the taxes don't have the impact that it does here in Texas. So when we were doing the neighborhood plan, when we were talking about mixed development and mixed income, we felt that was a good mixture for our neighborhood, not realizing that the downside was the increase in property taxes because of the way the appraisals are done in Texas. And I think that's something that has been risen at the legislature, is that we want to look at a better way, a more justifiable way in appraising property, as opposed to a sale that happened a year ago or 2 years ago. So that brings us to another issue, a homestead exemption. What's y'all's position on the homestead exemption as for the city of Austin?
I totally support it, absolutely. And it's on our website. We've got a section there on the City of Austin homestead exemption. You have the county homestead exemptions. We think that, and I've run the numbers, a $35,000, not a percentage, but a fixed amount off the value of the appraised value for the city, for the line item that's the city taxes. And so I say $35,000. I totally support that. And the Austin Neighborhoods Council has been pushing for this for a very long time. Many council members have been asked, they won't commit. We're going to say we are committing to the $35,000, absolutely.
And I agree with that, and I think
And it helps the low income.
It absolutely does.
You know, someone who owns a $400,000 home, they're going to be a little happy, but someone who's got a $90,000 home, that's going to be a huge impact for them. And that's the balance.
Right. And what it's going to lead to, and I think why you have council members and policymakers not wanting to do it, because they recognize that that's going to squeeze the amount of revenue that they get.
So be it.
But they don't want to make
That's
the
right.
tough budget
That's
decisions
exactly right.
because they would rather not have to make decisions.
Yes.
They'd rather
Yes.
keep the same revenue and get to spend what they spend. I'm willing to give that to the taxpayers and say I will be more responsible with the spending side of the house so that we can accommodate allowing those exemptions for homeowners.
Yeah, Austin Energy can cut 35 million pretty easy, and we've come out, it's about 35 to 40 million that it would reduce the revenue, and that's just a back of the envelope calculation. I don't have the exact numbers, but you could do some efficiency improvements in Austin Energy and get that number. Okay, it can be done.
Yeah, we need to go there too. Boy, time was too quick here. Well, I'm gonna have to ask you both, especially Lori, about the bag ban.
The bag ban.
Which we got,
yes.
because there was quite a long, lengthy tirade or whatever you called it on the Facebook with you.
Absolutely. And, I want to say that, I understand that there's two sides of this argument, and I understand both sides. I understand the environmentalist side where you've got the bags that are damaging personal property and public property and animals and all of this. So, and I totally understand all of that. Then you've got the business side. I've got supporters for our campaign that are small businesses. I'm a small business. My company, we sell bottled rainwater, and I certainly don't want a plastic bottle ban. All right, that's the last thing I want. Okay, so I understand both sides of this.
Imagine Austin says get rid of them. You get these little. This is one of the things you get hanging around politics. Little freebie they had down there. Austin, imagine Austin.
Yeah. So
anyway, don't mean to.
So I'd like to back up. This thing's been going on 5 years. We talked about
reminded
this.
Me that.
5 years this thing's been going on, and to be at the point where we are right now, and it's so divisive of different groups and all. You've got small businesses furious. You've got the environmentalists never coming to the center, and I would have approached this in a completely different way. It's kind of like the movie "It's a Beautiful Life." If you were in there earlier, it would be a little bit. The result would be a little bit different. So my proposal, how I would have approached this was, or it would have been, that I would have said the city of Austin needs to put their money where their mouth is, and we give contracts to companies like Home Depot. We gave a $4 million contract to Home Depot. Home Depot was one of the companies in Austin that would not do the get rid of plastic bags. I would say, you know what, you're not going to get the $4 million contract if you don't stop using plastic bags. Put your money where your mouth is. Be a customer. Use a market force to make a difference. And then the city would look like a leader instead of just pointing the finger and not taking their own medicine. Put their money where their mouth is. So to me, that's what I would have done. I would have done it different. And we would have never gotten to this point where we'd have to mandate businesses to do something they don't want to do. All right? That's how I would have done it.
You want to throw it in here?
Well, and I agree. And listen, Austin, as I've told people, this is an environmentally friendly city. I think everyone has good intentions about recycling and reuse, and I think there's plenty of opportunities where we could have applied that in this case. What was offensive to me, and I kind of use this as my as part of my campaign, is that we spent, I was saying a year and a half because that's what the most recent iteration, but Laura, she always reminds me that it's actually been 5 years. But here's the issue to me, is we spent so much time, energy, and resources talking about how to ban plastic bags rather than talk about how do we fix the financial problem over at Austin Energy?
Fix the
How do we
buses.
fix traffic? How do we deal with issues that are impacting real people? Today I was sitting outside before I came here, and I was watching. There was a daycare, and the two daycare workers were walking. Two little kids, each holding hands. There's probably about 16 of them. And I started thinking, those kids right now. There's a parent sitting in traffic, looking at the clock, saying, if I don't get to the daycare in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to be charged an extra $20, and I'm not sure I have it in my budget. And the city is about to raise my utility rates $50, and I'm not sure how I'm going to pay for daycare next month. Those are the real issues that this city council has rather spend talking about plastic bags. Yeah. So to me, it's look, I agree with Laura, there's probably a better way to do it. My thing is, we could have made that decision 4.5 years ago and moved on.
If I were on the council 3 years ago, we wouldn't have gotten here. We wouldn't have gotten here.
Well, I had to ask, the question was, Laura, if you were on the dais, John Bush, on Thursday, would you have voted for against the bag? It drew 65 comments. And you're right, it's like,
we're spending a lot of effort, and I'm like, can we talk more about Austin Energy?
And you've already mentioned, I have to go into transportation because I've been riding the bus a lot. And you're talking about the AFL and Mike Martinez and how they've upped the rate. But me being handicapped, I used to be free. And it used to cost like $1 and you could ride the bus all day. Now it's $2 to ride the bus all day, and I got to pay $1. And I guess the service is okay, but I know if you go back to affordability, there's a lot of times I got to dig around to find $1. And I'm thinking some people out there, and with the transportation the way it is, the streets all clogged up and high fuel, cut the price back in half or even 2/3 and pack them buses, buy more buses and increase the service time. Or I could see a lot of people can ride the bus. It really wasn't that bad. Yeah. It takes so much long and.
Well, you know, when I used to work for Chavez County Commissioner Marcos de Leon as Chief of Staff, these were some of the things that I really, in the long run, couldn't really understand governments penny pinching the people.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, like 20 cents, 50-cent increase. But if you look at Capital Metro's budget and you dive into it and look at all the kind of expenses that they go into for lobbying, for marketing, for, you know, the
just
CEO,
all
the perks. If you were to eliminate all of that, you would eliminate the need to increase the rates for the passengers to use the metro. And again, you know, we subsidize it by our income tax. I mean, the tax that we pay, not the income, the tax that we pay. You know, so
drives me nuts. You
know, it's just I just can't understand how they see that as revenue that will financially stabilize that organization when you penny pinch, you know.
Look at the meter extension downtown. That was nothing, the revenue they were going to generate from that. And that affected the musicians and my daughter used to work at one of the restaurants downtown, and she had a hard time paying for parking and the safety of it. Okay, in the middle of the night when you have to go out and pay this thing again. Sure. The whole parking meter extension was the whole similar issue. You're penny pinching the people when you're just giving a $4 million subsidy to this hotel downtown that was going to build there anyway, but we're penny pinching for the parking meters and the buses. It's ridiculous. And you've got the rail that you can get on. You don't even have to pay to get on that thing. There's no way to even validate that you have paid.
I heard that too. They say after you got all this rail, you buy a ticket and they don't want to give it to you.
There's nothing that validates that you paid for that. And
their fare recovery is single digits. And look, we're talking about urban rail. They're talking about the next $1 billion, and that's just a capital expense. Let me give you two examples. Detroit, Michigan, and Nashville, Tennessee, we're doing the exact same thing we're doing with Mayor Leffingwell and this whole urban rail committee that's talking about how do we expand. Both those communities spent over 2 years looking at urban rail. Within a week of each other in December, they both walked away and said, we cannot afford it. It will bankrupt this community. Yeah. We need to go to bus rapid transit.
That's it.
Portland is now $16 million in the hole because of their transit, and they're going to raise bus fares.
I got to stop it here and say about this. A couple of years ago, we talked about that right here before they come up with this darn train. We could have bought everybody in Cedar Park and Leander a brand new Ford Taurus. That's just how much money we spent. And it's a year going by out there now, and I got to pay $1 to get on the bus.
Well, it's a function of, you know, and I was willing, you know, I think
that's because I'm handicapped. If I wasn't, it'd be too much.
I think a lot of people in this community were willing to test this out with the Metro Rail, and the results were it was over budget, over time. They're still not meeting the ridership big picture, the ridership, and the result was they had the legislature had to step in and tell them fix your financial house. And they had to raise bus fares and cut services to paratransit riders. That was the result of Metro Rail. Wait until you put in $1 billion rail system and imagine what's going to happen then.
Who is it that had the high dollar salary over there?
It's the woman in charge.
The woman in charge, like
$200K, over $250K.
My Lord, I could do it for that price. I guarantee it.
That's huge. Absolutely huge. You know, one of the things that you know, we've talked, you know,
No, it almost makes my head. I can't think too well, you know. And this kind of stuff makes my head want to explode. 200,000. It was like 270 or something.
It's over 250. Yeah.
Well, you know, on this whole Metro Rail, all I can say is from our neighborhood associations at Concilia from way back in the 90s. All I can say now is I told you so.
Yeah.
Because everything that we cautioned, the gentrification, the increase of property taxes, once the Metro Rail came in, it's happening right now. And that's why we had 2 elections on Metro Rail. The first one failed, and then you know, that was, you know, the neighborhood plans that the city brought.
Yep.
They came in with a fixed infrastructure of light rail, whether you liked it or not, whether you approved it or not. So, you know, it's and it's just like that bond proposal that you also worked on, where we were building a, what is it, a catwalk, what do you call it, a boardwalk. Millions of dollars while we're closing libraries, we're closing parks, we're closing recreation centers.
You're raising the price on elderly people to get on the bus.
And I'm saying, wow, you know.
You know what I would like to do is, you know, as a council member, I'd like to initiate some sort of process where we look at dollars spent per person that this project is going to serve. Okay, if you've got, you know, 100,000 people that it's going to serve, and it's, you know, $1 million, how much dollar per person that is, and set.
That's a good idea.
Almost, I mean, we would do that in the engineering community. You know, you'd set kind of a, it's called a normalization.
Any business you'd do that.
Any business you would do, return on investment, and how much is it costing per person, and, you know, how many people can be using this boardwalk? How many people use the rail? Okay, the citizenry said no, the rail's not a good idea. They didn't listen. They didn't listen on water treatment plant 4. There's no water in the lake, okay, for that $500 million, you know, paperweight we've got over there. And then the biomass plant, you know, $2 billion worth of, you know, to get the megawatt. Investment to get that megawatt capacity when it was 10 times higher than any wind or solar at the same capacity, and even the environmentalists told them not to do that. So how many examples do you have to have of this council making the wrong decision? There's plenty more wrong decisions where that came from. Okay, we got to get them out of there.
Well, one of the biggest things in running for office, Pokey, is the issue of finance. And Austin has become such a large area. There is a proposal that that the Charter Revision Commission approved narrowly of a 10-1 plan for geographic.
Yeah, we have to talk about that too before we go off.
For geographic districts here in Austin. We're one of the largest municipalities in the country that still votes, elects our city council member at large. What is each and every one of your opinion on that, your position, and what will you do as a candidate to, if you're for or against it? Yeah.
Well, I attended many of the Charter Revision Committee meetings, and I did testify at them. I am totally supporting the complete 10-1 plan. I think you have to have absolute geographical representation, so that what you said, Gavino, you have someone you can go to. And it's not somebody that's representing 750,000 people. That is ridiculous, because it doesn't work. And we know it, and that's why we're in the mess we're in right now for different issues. But I completely support the 10-1, and I hope that the council votes on this before the election. All right? And they're getting pressure from the Charter Revision Committee and the public to make the vote beforehand. And I think it's going to be a tight vote. It was a tight vote on the Charter Revision Committee itself. It won by 1 vote. And I think it's going to be tight.
No, I absolutely agree. I'm a strong supporter of the 10-1 plan. I absolutely agree that this vote has to happen before the election, so that
put them on the record.
Put everyone on the record, because I will tell you, my opponent is, you know, trying to again play two sides of the fence and equivocate and say, well, I like the general concept, but I have questions. Listen, it isn't very hard. If you want to support the hybrid plan, then be on record and say, I'm for the hybrid plan, here's why, so that when voters go into the booth on May 12, they know where I stand, where Laura stands, where all the candidates who are running stand, because this is going to be one of the most important decisions that this city council is going to make in the next year, if not for the next 5 years. And it's what they put on the ballot, how they put it on the ballot, and whether they're going to support it.
Make announcements. Oh, no, we still got 10 minutes.
No, if they want to make announcements, y'all have any activities, functions?
Oh, yeah, well, of course.
Coming up, y'all want to share with the audience?
Oh, yeah, y'all do, because I was just bragging about your parties. I mean, fundraisers. But, you know.
So we have our fundraiser happening this.
We can't say fundraiser?
Gathering.
Gathering.
Campaign party.
Campaign party.
On Friday at the Shady 7 restaurant in East Austin. So that is on
Shady 7, 7th and Shady Street.
7th and Shady. It's called the Shady 7 Mexican Ranch.
Okay.
So we our party's scheduled there, and we're waiting on some permit information. We may have to, depending on the city, because you know how difficult they are with permits.
Yeah, city bureaucracy, bloated bureaucracy.
So
you have to pay all those salaries for that office. That has 15 people that review before they let it go.
So more information on that coming, but we are going to have a party Friday night. We're not sure exactly the address. So,
but they can go to your website.
Go to my website. Go to our Facebook page. Laura Pressley campaign, and you'll see it there. Yeah.
Yeah, same for us. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build basically meet and greets in different parts of this community, going to the places where candidates typically don't go, because you know where they go. They block walk in the same mile-and-a-half square route, a square area, mile-and-a-half square area of Central City in the core. So we're starting to hold, first one's being scheduled for about 2 weeks from now. I don't have a firm date, in South Austin, to bring together South Austin neighbors and say, look, here's someone who speaks to you and someone who's actually going to fight for your issues. So we're going to have these kind of neighborhood meet and greets, and check our Facebook. Our Facebook is real simple, Dom, the number 4 Austin.
We usually put that up on the screen, but will there be any free food and beer at these places?
Always.
Free
food
beer.
and drinks at ours. Yeah.
Free beer equals votes.
That's what I've come to find out.
That's not a Democrat or a Republican thing.
We're going to have a gathering also on Friday, March the 23rd, 11:30 a.m. Marcelo Tafoya, our past LULAC District 12 director, just recently got out of the hospital, had a open heart surgery operation. He's rehabilitating very well, and he'll be out. We'll be having a gathering to welcome him back to the fight. He's a LULACer. We're all LULACers. So, he's a Tejano legend and the radio disc jockey. Marcelo's been with Tejano music all his life, and he used to have newspapers. He used to be real involved in the community. And we've asked Laura, Dominic, and to come out and speak to us.
2208 East 2nd Street, right?
2208 East 2nd. It's a fish fry. It's a gathering.
But it's not free.
But it's not free.
But I already promised to buy your plate.
Good Lord.
Good.
I'll be there.
Free beer and a fish fry.
Hey, if I got to struggle to get $1 to get on the bus, you can imagine it.
But I think,
look for free
I think
food
these
beer.
are the type of settings that candidates need to come out to and engage with the people.
That's good.
The common people. These aren't lobbies. These aren't special interests or companies that want to invest in the city of Austin. These are your traditional community neighborhood folks that will be gathering there. So we invite you also, the public, if you have a chance, swing by.
Is it a church?
It's a church, a parish hall, Cristo Rey, at 2208 East 2nd. It's at 11:30 a.m. and we'll be there for about an hour and a half. Swing by and come meet some of these folks, ask questions. And we know that April the 12th is the deadline for registration for this election.
Is it?
So we always encourage folks, register to
vote.
Because we can stand here and gripe and whine and whatnot, but if we don't go out to that poll and exercise that electoral vote, it's going to be all null and void.
And as I always say, you can always volunteer. You can go down and either become an election worker. They pay pretty good now.
Real well. The city elections cover many, many more boxes, so they're always looking for workers.
And you can get involved in any candidate. Sure, both of these can put you to work doing something.
Yeah, a lot of these campaigns need volunteers for block walking, phone banking, many
putting signs out.
Put signs out.
So Friday could be a good day.
Friday could be a good day.
For lunch.
March the 23rd.
And party hardy in the evening with Laura.
Well, that's this Friday.
Yeah,
ours is the 16th.
Mine's
the 23rd.
on March the 23rd.
Yeah, ours is the 16th.
What'd you say, Ma? Oh, yeah, here's other stuff coming up Wednesday. That's this Wednesday. This is a pretty good movie. This is my side of the aisle, I guess you could say. Grinding Down America is about, well, we've it's gotten so the way it is. But you can come on down there and meet the guy who did it. You can put that in your search engine and find out about it. This is my good friend, Dean Wright, New Revolution Now, putting this on. Come on, that's free, of course. Here's the CPAC candidates. Y'all will be there.
Yes.
All right.
There'll be a bunch of others there.
Evening. Okay.
Yeah.
Come on down. It's free. You know what that is? It's that's the big white. It's the big white building there on Mopac where it crosses the river. You know what I'm talking about, Gavino? The big building.
Yeah.
Well, come on down. It's free.
I'd like to ask a question before we
head
out, because I know y'all are.
We got about 5.
Y'all have been out there on the community, touching, speaking to voters. What kind of reaction or what kind of pulse are y'all getting from the citizens in respects to this council and how their governance is? What's the pulse out there? What kind of feedback are y'all receiving?
Yeah, I've been since December. We've been talking to lot of different groups, and West Austin groups, East Austin, environmentalists, Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians. Everybody's frustrated. They don't like what's going on, and they want a better way. And I think, you know, that's why we're here, because we got frustrated just like they did, and we said we can make a difference, and we know a better way. So that's why we're here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been hearing. The challenge
Very
is, so
serious.
I'll raise these issues, the things we've talked about today. That's why I do this every time when I meet with someone or a group. I mention these issues, and they're almost always in agreement. That's crazy. Why are we doing that? We should do something better. Then the next question I ask is, when was the last time you voted in a city council election? Well, I typically just vote in November, or I gave up on them a long time ago. I said, well, that's the problem. You don't vote, accept the results.
Right.
Accept the results, like you were saying, Gavino. You've got to get out and vote. That's why my opponent was one of those who stopped moving to a November election. He was a critical swing vote to prevent that from happening, so that they could keep the same people voting, the same people in, and at huge cost to taxpayers. So there is a growing frustration out there, but it's incumbent on these people to show up and actually change it. And so that's why, you know, I'm making every day, going out there and rattling cages as much as I can to say it's on you. And if we don't take this opportunity, accept the results.
That's right. You had forgotten about that. We were supposed to start having our city council elections. Well, we voting on other things because it is expensive. We'll talk about the cost analysis of this.
$3 million, I think.
And you get such a low turnout for the city, which is
93% do not vote.
Right.
for your city
Okay,
elections.
that's about 93% of registered voters.
But if we
do
had
not
them on the
vote.
same day as the state
Yes.
elections and other elections.
Well, our big 4x8 signs are going up this week.
Yeah, well, we've got about 2 minutes, so take a minute and tell us something.
And we have put the May 12th date on our 4x8s, so people know when the election is. So that's part of the education of when to come out, and so we're putting that on our signs.
I think they know that, but it's...
I don't think they do. Pokey, I might
Well,
challenge
you know,
that.
the discussion of redistricting and everything has messed up and confused a
Confused
lot of people.
people.
But you are right, you know, it is May the 12th, and it is going to, we will have the city council elections before the primaries. That's
Okay, you got
another
about 1 minute,
Okay,
so
close
go
it up,
ahead, Don.
Listen, the bottom line is if you are not satisfied with the way this city is going, if you're not satisfied that this is a place where the typical family on the typical income can live in this community as opposed to places like Kyle, Bastrop, Butte, and Round Rock, you've got to get out and make a difference. You've got to get out and vote. That, you know, this is an opportunity to make that change. I'm offering a different vision. I'm talking about things that nobody on this current council is talking about: workforce education, affordability, and having safe communities. So listen, I'm happy to engage in this conversation. I hope to see you out there in the community.
10-4, we hope to see all y'all out there in the last 30, 40 seconds here. Next week, we're going to have some of my people on finally, in the Republicans, Gerald Dougherty and Jim
Oh,
Strickland,
that's next week.
county commissioners for
Precinct.
Precinct 3, I
Precinct
think.
3. Travis
Precinct
County.
3.
What about Yates? He didn't respond.
Yates didn't, I don't know. He hadn't responded yet. So anyway, we'll be back. There's plenty going on. Come to some of those events we had up on the screen a little while there. They're free. So why not? And you can always, any of these candidates could use help. There's no reason to just sit around. Get on out there, and we'll see you next week, folks. Bye-bye from the trailer park.
Pokey, thanks for what you do.
Next.